appropriations, and we're going to be talking more about the FY 2022 budget. Before we get started, there have been a flurry of emails because we have now received the AA1 from the administration for the $200 million rental assistance funding that has just come to the state as a result of the latest federal legislation. I know that our Economic Development Committee was taking testimony today. If you look at the material, and Senator Sears and Senator Ball and Senator Westman, you will see that they have a proposed allocation of that $200 million. And we're in this kind of balance of how much of this we want to release immediately, because there's a great deal of concern being expressed, particularly by the housing folk, that the last rental assistance that went out was really for rent due in November. And there is also a time frame, I think September, in September, where you have to spend the money or it would be redistributed to other states. So the challenge for us is to figure out how much to move out immediately, and then how much committees of jurisdiction feel they need more time. But we have been trying to figure out how to schedule that joint fiscal committee meeting. And so if you've been seeing your emails build up, it's trying to figure out a time, because we have so many scheduled meetings all the time. We have Tuesday noon scheduled. We have Tuesday afternoon scheduled. Some of us have Wednesday noon scheduled. We have Thursday afternoon scheduled. And so finding time is becoming somewhat of a challenge. So just to let you know, I think we're hoping that we can have joint fiscal meeting at 8:15 on Tuesday. That, I think, is what we're hoping for. I don't know, Becca, you're probably driving up on Tuesday morning.
I think there was well, I was just emailing with Carolyn before I got on for this meeting. We may have to do joint fiscal when we normally do chairs and try to find a time to do chairs and do.
Well, that's the other option I was going to ask, and that is whether it would make sense to do Tuesday afternoon. And because in fact, a number of us that would be at the chairs meeting are going to be at joint fiscal, and we have to move this money quickly, and we're going to have to bump some other stuff.
Yeah.
And so
the other wrinkle, Jane, just we may have a JLMC meeting also on Tuesday, which is why that morning slot might be for that. So I'll be in touch, but I know we have to meet on joint fiscal on Tuesday. It just has to happen. So.
Okay, and so our thought was to get a presentation of the proposed allocation. Some of it can go to Human Services to keep continuing. Some of it really is a funding that will allow us to continue some of what we've been doing, like in Human Services, the homelessness efforts, to rental assistance, utility assistance, as well as some additional support. So,
have they sent out their sheet on where they would like the money to go?
Yes, they have sent it. I have it, and I've sent it. I don't know if that was included with the AA1. I got it from Josh Hanford, who had sent it to Michael Sirotkin. But it raises the question, that we're really going to have to, if we're doing a second bill, we're going to have to really have committees move swiftly to advise us of any modifications or something else that needs to be added if we are dealing in this environment. So I just wanted to let you know that I guess it's still under development. I'm more than willing to do 4 o'clock on Tuesday. If that's, it would really be nice to replace a meeting with a meeting as opposed to adding on another meeting, to be honest.
Especially on Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. Well, We can try to push
I've
for
already
that.
got I've got a meeting at 8:45 with Judiciary Ledge Council to try to, go over what bills are coming and so forth. So, I mean, I could cancel that if they want to do 8:30, but
Okay, well, if we do 4 o'clock on Tuesday, that would
Yeah.
address a whole lot of problems.
Is that money all just for housing, Jane?
It's very prescriptive. It's for rental assistance. So if you own your own home and you're out of work and you're poor and need help, it doesn't cover home ownership. It covers rental. It does allow help for utilities as a related housing expense, but I asked Commissioner Hanford that question this morning, and it really is very narrow. The hope is that with additional federal legislation that there will be help to other people. Originally, there was some concern whether all that money could be spent, but based on the data they have relative to the number of income qualifying households, it would be possible to expend that 200 million because it's for a 12-month period. So you could be paying rent under this for a year.
So
Yeah, but
there's
what-
no ability with it to help someone that's behind on their mortgage.
That's right, Rich.
That's the-
What I'm wondering is, why do we need to pay all these things? People, are they
If we
not paying?
don't, well, Bobby, the question is, if people have a need and they meet the income test, if we don't spend this money to help Vermont households, regardless of other feelings about them, the money will be redistributed to other states. It's as simple as that. So that's why there's the time sensitivity, and that is there's that reversion. And so I agree. There's some households, and for example, households that might be receiving reach up, and if they've had a whole year of having their rent paid, once that ends, they're going to fall off that cliff, and have to go back. So you're right. There's
But this does come now with income guidelines. You can only be 80% of the median, and so there are some guidelines. I would just say to you, Bobby, in my community, there are a bunch of people that work in the restaurant business, waiting on tables, and very few of them are more than 30% capacity. And, I have a bunch of places around that are only open limited numbers of days. So their staff is not doing well.
They
well, the
aren't,
other. Go
they
ahead,
aren't
Bobby.
receiving unemployment and their extra $300 on that, Richard?
If you're working 4 days a week and you were normally working 5 or 6 days a week, you're not getting unemployment.
Well, the only thing I'm getting to is that 80% of the median income is still over $1,000 a week of income. So, that's a pretty high bar, especially up north here. I mean, to go to Ethan Allen or to one of these other companies and make it come home or make $1,000 a week, you want to be pretty well up in your job skills, or you don't make that kind of money.
Well,
But-
I don't think there's any, it's an income test, but it could help the lower wage workers.
That's what
It's not as though it's all for people who might be getting Social Security or other form of
No.
assistance. So I'm saying, Josh Hanford also said that many landlords, particularly small ones, are just, because water and sewer hasn't been paid. The towns are putting a lien on their property because the tenant's supposed to be paying. So it really is creating a lot of hardship. And I've got to go to the door. So I'll be right back.
Bobby, I think your point would make a lot more sense to me if we could repurpose the money for something else, but we can't. So in that case, why not help those people a little more, even if they are getting the 1,000?
Well,
It's not like they're in the lap of luxury.
I mean, it's very important that these people understand that this free money is not free, and it's not gonna always just keep rolling in to bail them out, to pay their rent and utilities and back rent and forward rent and it's $200 million is a lot of money.
Right, but I mean, if our options are to give it to this population or to give it back to the federal government,
Give it to the population.
yeah, because it wouldn't go to the federal government. They would give it to another state.
Yeah.
I would
Well,
just, I would argue with you, Bobby. The restaurant business in my county, they aren't doing all that well, and most of them are not open full blast, and many are working limited hours and in limited space, and their incomes are down.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Well-
don't want to get into more detail. I'm just saying that, and I'm sorry I had to leave. I own rental property, and believe it or not, the septic system is not working. So I've just had to have. So not only do I have the cat to take care of next door, but I've also got the rental property with a problem. So they had to send their help. Not that they had that many, because many are working remotely, but now today they're all working remotely. So I just need a few more things to take care of, I guess.
Yeah.
So we will set up a meeting and move it forward and try to balance moving because there's great sensitivity, as people know, how much joint fiscal is determining versus full committees, and we're trying to be respectful of that work as well. So I know that we have the administration in the waiting room, and we're supposed to be talking about the budget, the proposed budget, but I'm sure that this is a topic that they're interested in as well, because they would like to get the grant approved. And for us, it's a matter of how much we move forward immediately at joint fiscal and how much we would do in a very expedited mini bill to move the rest after committees have more time to do their work.
Yep.
So that was just background. Yes, Chrissy.
Yeah, and we do have Adam and Hardy. They're here. So when you're ready, they can begin.
Okay. So any other questions? Okay. So Adam, do you have a document that you want to put up on the screen, or we know that we did not get to the language the last
We
time.
do, Madam Chair. I'm going to take off my video since I'm getting some interference. We have the document that I believe Chrissy can put up on the screen from our website that is the big bill language, and we were just going to go through that anytime you're ready.
Okay, some of this looks familiar. A100.
We haven't changed that. Okay, so I would skip. We did not make any changes to the A100s. We except, of course, the dates. And really, the meat starts at B1100. And the oops, a little bit higher up. Right. So beginning with B1100, you see many of the one-time initiatives that the governor addressed predominantly in his budget speech. These are using the FY21 additional over forecast revenue, as well as using some additional property transfer tax revenue and some FMAP enhanced federal match revenue. There's a total of a little over $210 million that we invest in various initiatives. We've spoken about those in brief in the past when we went over the big bill with you folks, but you see them here in the B1100 section. Not all of them, because some of them are transfers, which Party will get to later on in the D section. But just for example, starting up at the top, you see there's $24 million going to the Agency of Natural Resources, 14 of which is for DEC for brownfield remediation. Another 5 of which is to Forest Parks and Recreation for VOREC, kind of to enhance our outdoor recreation economy. And there's also $5 million for A&R to improve state parks and other public areas, boat ramps, that kind of thing, to improve access, particularly for people with limited mobility. So that this is a way, frankly, to make our state land and state parks more approachable for everyone, even with people with physical handicaps. Down below, you see 25 million for weatherization initiatives. I know the governor spoke articulately on the need for additional weatherization. We look at this as one way to address climate change, and also, frankly, to address personal comfort at home. So you see, of the 25 million, 4 million is directed to the DCF weatherization program. 5 million is for state buildings that we can become through the SEMP program, State Energy Management Program. And there's another 16 million that we are giving to the Vermont Housing and Finance Agency, VHFA, for their weatherization and rapid mobilization program.
Is that a loan program?
I believe it is. It operates as a low cost or zero cost loan.
But it's a renewable, in other words, that people would, it would be capitalizing this financing and would be available
It would be
in the
replenished in
future
other words,
through
yes.
Repayment?
Yes.
Okay. Have we done this before?
I'm afraid I'm not the best person to answer that. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
So there's a total of 38, almost 39 million that's going to the Agency of Administration. And there are a couple of novelties, call it, in this budget. This is for distributing the 53rd week of Medicaid and 27th payroll period. That is coming from the 2753 reserve that we have. And that money will be paid to the Agency of Administration, kind of like we do pay out.
But that's not part of your 210, is it?
No, it is not.
I didn't think so. Okay. That's just taking the money that we've put in a special fund for the.
That's correct.
For exactly this purpose. So.
That's correct. And then there's, you see in there also, there's a $250,000 investment to support 2 additional positions to work with the Executive Director of Racial Equity. I would note that these positions we are funding them this year with one-time money, but our intention is to bake them into the base by putting them in our internal service funds, because these people will be working across agencies and departments, really statewide. But by the time we settled on what we needed and how we were going to go about it, we had already locked in our internal service funds and distributed them throughout departments, and it would have been very difficult to then recalculate. So this year we're funding it with one time, but the intention is to put that into our internal service funds, and thus it would become base funded starting with FY23. There's also a little over $14 million to distribute to departments in a similar method to the Pay Act. But this unusually is for meeting our state employee retirement system, ADEC. Typically that too is put as part of our internal service fund charges. This year, because we knew that this was going to be discussed in the legislature with the treasurer and the governor, and we sensed that there may well be changes to the number that was called for by the actuaries. We thought we would, instead of baking it into departmental budgets, we would pull it out and make it a line item and fund it this way. But our intention is to fully fund our ADEC. If it doesn't change, if there are no changes made and we're going to meet the actuarial determined employer contribution, here is the money to do it.
But then that means next year, we're using one-time money this year, but those ADEC costs are not in the base for next year as well.
Well, they will be. We have, it's more of a, the way we've decided to fund it this year. There is base money behind this. We have base money to fund this, and our intention is in every year to fund it with base money. But this time, instead of putting it into departmental budgets, we're creating a separate line item for it.
Okay, so this is base money, but it's not, it's being budgeted differently than,
That's correct.
okay. All
Our
right.
thought is this gives us some flexibility if we
Okay,
change.
what we're gonna have to do is obviously sort out what is a matter of base funding that you're using differently, or what's in the 210 one-time money, and knowing how that's being applied. So this is not part of the 210. D is not part of the 210.
No, our intention is to use base funding for the
Okay.
ADEC,
All right.
because every year we know it's going to be a cost. What we're saying is it may not end up being $14 million. It may be less than that, and it'd be much easier to change that number if it were not baked into departmental internal service funds. Number 4 below, that's a $500,000 allocation for Department of Labor to provide, as it says, for employment and reemployment support services. This is really beefing up what is part of our next gen, or used to be part of our next gen appropriation, and it's to provide training and reskilling, and basically to provide skills for people who we hope will enter the labor force, to provide them training that they need. There's a little over $11 million to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, broken down as you see. There's some tourism and marketing money. There's essentially seed money for a marketing program that we are putting in there, that ultimately will be replenished by taking the surplus that may be generated in any year from the meals and rooms tax. You see a $5 million allocation to housing and community development to establish the Better Places program, which I believe we spoke to you about last year.
So we're creating a new program. This says to establish. My impression was Better Places was a program that had already been created within the department.
So we had an initiative last year. I don't know if it made it to the finish line.
Okay.
Better Places. That may have been where you saw it.
Well, it's where you got 90,000 of charitable contribution to fund the initiative, because the committees of policy committees did not opt to fund it with the CRF money. So that's why I was wondering when you use the term to establish a program, I thought it had already been established.
This may be referring to with state money, establish an appropriation with state money. But I'll follow up on that.
Well, it doesn't matter. We'll be getting more, don't worry. That's just a small detail. We can keep going.
Okay. And that there's also $3 million for the Vermont Housing Investment Program. And this is predominantly focused on rehabbing old rental stock as opposed to building new. This too is a program that is near and dear to Department of Housing and Community Development. You notice
Before we move off this page, could I ask about the amount going, the million for travel and tourism? Is that going to be for the purposes of advertising and promoting our travel tourism business for this coming fall? Do you know, Adam, or next winter, or what? Do you know what that's going to be used for?
the intention is to promote Vermont. As tourism and marketing will tell you, we have by far the lowest marketing budget in New England. We're constantly outspent by our neighbors in Maine and New Hampshire, for example. So this is to beef up the assets we have available to promote fall, winter, summer, you know, pretty much across the spectrum.
But I think the language in A is one we're going to pay attention to, because basically we're pre-appropriating and saying if our revenue estimates, are coming, if the revenues come in higher than our forecast, then this money automatically goes to this purpose. So it's a pre-appropriation of what would happen with any forecast that's less than perfect on the plus side. So that is a fairly significant piece of language there, committee.
That's good.
What we're doing is we're essentially seeding the program. This does
Senator,
not rely upon tax revenues, but to replenish will rely upon meals and rooms tax excess revenue.
Yeah, all right. Well, as we know, rooms and meals is split between the education fund and the general fund. So I know there'll be a more discussion on that split, but I see Senator Sears has got his hand up.
Well, I'll just use my usual, shouldn't be any surprise to anyone. I think the $1 million should go to regional marketing organizations. They know how to market Vermont best in their regions. And the state tourism, I think this is extra money that we're talking about that might come in. So I would suggest that whatever we get be distributed equally to the various regions of the state for marketing purposes.
Well, I know we'll have a lot more discussion because this has been proposed by the administration before, and it's not been accepted because it basically is taking away the appropriations oversight of this revenue forecast versus actual revenues received, and saying it's already obligated for one particular use as opposed to the general fund to be used in a broader consideration. So I do know that that's been a concern, and we did have language when we do, even if we don't use this method that we get to scoop everything that exceeds the forecast approach. I think our last year's discussion around recognizing the role and the partnership of regional entities is something that it's sort of a value statement that we've put out there and want to keep in mind. Okay. So we were down to E, I believe, before we went back up. But
I have a question about E.
All right. I can't see, mine's cut off. Okay.
Okay. Adam, I'm wondering, my memory was that the Office of Engagement received, I think it was $1 million in our CRF legislation that went out in the last session. And the understanding I thought was that they were then going to be self-sustaining, sink or swim from that point on. It looks like this is maybe a backdoor to get them another $1 million. Is that a unfair way of characterizing it?
I would call it unfair.
Okay.
You know, this is an ongoing, we hope, an ongoing effort. And, you know, this is, I believe, a way of taking a look at what they can do. You probably know better than most. I mean, this is what the president of UVM did for many years at his former employ at Purdue.
Yeah.
He's intimately familiar with engaging community partners in the private sector, organizations, nonprofits, and having them work with the university on internships, on skill levels, on joint ventures and the like. It would, you know, it's something that he did. And I personally think it's a terrific program if we can get it off the ground. This in particular is has the Department of Economic Development has worked with UVM. So they're actually going to focus on something called, what's it called? TBED, Technology-Based Economic Development. So they're trying to focus it a bit on what is not out there and what potentially could be out there, and kind of what could be the comparative advantage of UVM. So anyway, that is the proposal, but I don't think this is, I don't know if the intention was to be self-sustaining. I think that,
Well, I was chair of Ed, and President Garamella came in and pitched the Office of Engagement to us prior to the pandemic with the idea that it would become self-sustaining. And then I'm not imagining it, that I know when we talked about it last session, it was that we were making this one-time appropriation to them, after which they would need to sink or swim. The only reason I raise it is that if this is to be an ongoing thing, and it's $1 million this year and $1 million next and $1 million thereafter, UVM is in the process of slashing many programs in the College of Arts and Sciences. And it seems odd to me that we would be standing up a brand new program that seems, at least from this, not to be self-sustaining. So it seems part of a broader discussion about what they maybe should be using their appropriations for. So I just flag it. I'm not.
We'll have to. We'll have more discussion, Philip, when UVM comes in, because that was obviously the way it was testified to. This, I don't know, when we're talking about technology-based economic development. In other words, the money we give to UVM goes to 3 different places. One is for scholarships, one to the medical school, and the other is to the extension service. So if we're trying to partner with the university and take on a new function or a way of partnering the intellectual and technological resources of the university to support this program, then we need to understand exactly what it is and how it fits with last year's discussion. So I think we'll, this is just the first run through. So I think we'll obviously want to understand what we did last year, what's being asked for here, and kind of reconcile the two pieces, one, the funding already done and what's being requested here.
Yep.
You'll also notice 2 small appropriations. One is to establish an office in Montreal that will initially focus on Quebec, but could well broaden. And there, I don't think it's any mystery that Canada's are by far our largest foreign trading partner. And so the focus would be on foreign direct investment and just frankly having a presence there. So there's some seed money to establish an office in Montreal to promote ties between Vermont and Quebec. There's also a very small appropriation for Vermont's 250th anniversary celebration.
So
We
F
can
is
call that the
ongoing
Sears
then.
appropriation. Sorry?
F is ongoing then. That's a base cost.
To the extent that it works out, yes.
How will you know if it works out? Oftentimes, so much of this, we don't have very good ways of measuring. For, in terms of marketing, what Vermont does as a state is we talk about other states, but compared to what, when you see what marketing is done by some of Vermont businesses, it's pretty incredible, whether we're talking about Stowe or whether we're talking about a variety of marketing initiatives that are done just as part of the sales of companies. So I don't know how would you. I know that our RPC, for example, in the Northeast Kingdom, does a lot and has good contacts with Quebec.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering how this office would facilitate something that over and above what is already happening by the northern tier sections of the state, where they have pretty solid contacts and within the Quebec government. So we'll have to talk about that more. I see Bobby's raising a head. I mean, we are basically a free trade zone. Our RPC was the one that, or RDC, were combined, did all that work to do it. So I'm just, we need to understand, I guess this gets back to kind of the same thing as Senator Sears talked about, and that is we have these structures in place, whether it be travel and tourism or marketing or economic development, how those pieces fit together.
Yeah.
So
I know our crew does one heck of a job with a very small amount of money, in our regional development people.
And some of this is because of provisions in federal contracts that you
Yep.
have to have a U.S. presence, and that is an advantage. So there's some things already in place that that act as impetus for some of this as well. But we'll keep going. We don't need to vet everything on your wish list here. We want 250 to celebrate Vermont's 250th.
No, 25.
25, yeah.
I mean, sorry, 25.
For the
My gosh, what a celebration that's going to be.
Yeah.
Whoa. No. Let's not minimize this important event.
No.
No, we're talking
This is the
about
beginning.
the
No, the
amount of
20.
money.
This is just seed money to continue to work with other states and continue to organize for 2027.
And this is the group from Bennington that's helping.
It is, and unfortunately, they can't come in uniform today. But when we all met with the governor, he became convinced this was an important thing to do, and hopefully, at the time, we actually was.
Didn't we put some money in last year too?
We did, and this is a continuation of that money, and this is probably the best money we'll spend.
All right, I can see
Among the best. I shouldn't say the best. It'll be among the more important things that we do in this budget.
Well, and I don't want Dick to miss that, 25 last year, 25 this year, 25 next year until,
We'll be looking for about 200,000 next year.
oh golly.
Well, we are going to have a celebration.
That's fine.
Yeah, well, when is it going to be? Are we going to be around to celebrate?
Well, I don't know, but I think that, it'd be 1776, right? 2026.
It's
Yeah.
2020, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we
So-
should get some cardboard cutouts of us older folks just to stand
No.
up there in case, we're gone.
All right, now we're going to move on to something else near and dear, and that's body cameras for DOC.
Yeah,
So the body cameras are to, well, it's kind of self-evident, but I did want to point out that we put some money that I believe this committee agreed with in the budget adjustment to kind of get us going in that regard. This is meant to fill in for a full appropriation to body cams.
Is this standard practice in other states, Dick Sears, in
I
terms
don't
of
know. I don't know
cameras
about
in
corrections
facilities?
officers. I hadn't heard that, but
It seems like there's maybe policy implications when, I don't know, maybe not.
well, there are other states that have extensive cameras around cell blocks and et cetera, so that they can review
Right.
paper.
No, but I meant
of
body
incident.
cameras.
But I don't know about body cameras. I haven't heard about
All right, well, I'm sure that'll be a topic of more testimony, particularly in judiciary. And
And
let's,
right. So
okay.
moving on, there's $500,000 for VSAC. This is their, very
Oh,
popular.
wait a minute,
Wait,
wait a
wait.
minute, back up a little bit. I thought we did cameras for liquor, lottery, and fish and wildlife in our budget.
Yeah,
So the amounts that we had in BAA were enough to get them going and outfit a couple of officers. Same is true with fish and wildlife. But this is the balance. So the total for liquor and lottery, their estimate is about $60,000. There was 15 in the budget adjustment. This is the remaining 45. Similar with fish and wildlife. Their total is 139, I believe. And
Why
so
did
this
we
is the
never
balance.
hear that from any of the witnesses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize, why did you chunk them up? If it's important and we wanted to do cameras for law enforcement, why did we do only a partial?
I think the real answer is that we had better estimates after we had submitted the budget adjustment. And we also decided to go to a statewide program that instead of compartmentalizing, having wildlife have one and corrections another and the liquor and lottery a third, we decided to make it a full all-encompassing statewide effort. For example, benefiting from data storage in the cloud that we all could use that wouldn't work
Well,
quite
that
as
would have
well.
argued against putting any in the budget adjustment, Adam,
Yeah.
and saving it all as one comprehensive uniform proposal.
And in the cool light of day, that may have been the better way to do it, but we had already submitted the budget adjustment and we did a little bit more digging and then, the other issue was with corrections. Our feeling was that, originally our intention was just to outfit correctional officers in the facilities. But it rapidly became obvious to us that it's kind of silly not to provide a similar level of equipment for parole officers and for others who are out in the field. So, admittedly, we did a little bit more work on this and, came up with what we thought would be a full appropriation that we would put in the budget. And I think also importantly, it would provide some more discussion with the legislature if we had it in the budget as opposed to the BAA. So that's why it was chunked, but it was not our intention to put it in two pieces initially.
Strange.
Oh.
Where's DMV?
So the question, I can't see people, so I think I can hear Alice and then Senator Baruch.
Yes.
DMV, that they're not left out.
They are fully allocated in the budget adjustment. They thought they had what they needed. That was $138,000, and that was in budget adjustment. They thought that was all they needed.
I thought that they were all in at budget adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
We all did. We all thought so.
yeah,
Mhm.
All
that,
right,
go ahead, Adam.
my apologies for that. I don't know, maybe I did not communicate well enough.
The other thing is, this is the first I'm hearing about body cameras for parole officers.
Yeah,
I know that there's a proposal to arm parole officers. This isn't some linking of those two concepts, is it?
I wouldn't be the best person to answer that, Phil.
I
I
think
think
we'll
it's
have to
it's
take
better to
more
have the
testimony.
folks in corrections come in, and I
Yeah.
think they can give you a much more detailed.
I have to say, I think we should have the original witnesses from the budget adjustment who gave us those numbers come back in, because this is all seeming very strange
No.
suddenly. Not only the amounts, but where it's going. My understanding of who is getting them is apparently not right. So I'm hesitant to vote for these amounts when I don't know that at least my committee ever agreed to parole officers.
We haven't. This is only proposed.
No, understood, but I'm just flagging this.
And, you know, when you
Section.
say Department of Corrections, I thought it might have been for officers in correctional facilities, but it sounds like what we're talking about is, obviously, we really need to get the testimony
yeah.
around that proposal.
Sounds to
think,
me like everybody's gonna have one.
Yep, even you.
Yep. When
Yeah.
you go visiting, you've gotta have one.
Bobby really needs one.
All right.
I would think that the Judiciary Committee should take this up.
Well, they will, I'm sure.
Yes,
When do you want me to do it?
Well,
well, before we get the budget out, which won't be
Oh, yeah,
till,
that's easy. This is not, I thought this was the 200 million.
No,
no,
no, this is the budget.
this is a big bill.
Oh, this is the budget. This is the big bill, and these are only the governor's proposals. So we're just going through this is the first blush.
Oh,
So-
happy to, we'll take up both the corrections officers, any of these people with their.
Yeah.
Stephanie, would you just please send a memo to me and Peggy to bring up all these areas where there's body cameras? There's so many of them.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, okay.
Just to try to keep track of all of them.
It's many here as we're getting emails on when we're having our joint fiscal committee meeting. Somebody
Yeah, I
needs
know.
to say, just put a halt until we agree.
I love the way people respond to all.
So student assistance number 7 and 8, those we've seen.
Then you see the large appropriation to the Vermont State Colleges, $20 million as an additional appropriation to help with their reorganization and provide bridge funding to help them through a difficult period that they're going through now.
Yeah, which is less than what was included in the report from the select committee. So we'll have to take testimony. I don't know. I imagine their request was to have the funding at the level recommended by this committee. So who from the administration is the best person to talk to why this 20 million was the amount decided on?
I'll get you someone to contact. I can't
Okay.
answer that.
All right.
So can I say something, Jane?
Yes, you may.
Adam, what would be important is the 20 is way less than what that select committee came in with, but we also know that there's 12 million plus in federal money and how that can be used. And did that go into your thinking when the administration put the $20 million number in?
It did. Keep in mind that, I mean, to your point, Senator, you're absolutely right. I mean, they received 12 million in the most recent COVID bill, and they received 7 million in the first COVID bill, federal money. they would argue that part of that, or half of that maybe, had to go directly to students for financial assistance. But nonetheless, the money was there to either help them administratively or to help students. They also received, I believe, $10 million in general funding in, I think, the Q1 bill last year. And they received coronavirus relief money. In total, they've received over $100 million.
Yeah, we know that.
We understand that, but I think it would be helpful because I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not exactly sure how that 12 million can be used.
And
And-
actually, Senator Westman, Senator Baruth and I had a discussion with the folks from Vermont State College System, and they broke down how that additional money and not all of it is available to be spent because part of it would go to CCV that can't demonstrate the cost. So I think, Phil, was it about 5 million they thought after they netted out all the other was actually available to help support the operation and the transformation during this period of time. So they do have that data that would help say, yes, it was 12 million, but it's not 12 million that can be used in just.
Well, I think it's important for us as a committee to hear that. And I think it would be important for the administration to comment on that too.
I agree, if I might, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I agree with Senator Westman. I also just wanted to point out that the governor, unless I misheard it, in his speech, he recounted recent history of these appropriations as him appropriating more and us not following through on his requests. My memory is that it's usually been the reverse. And that's what I think we're seeing here, where this 20 million is less than a third of what's going to be necessary. So I hope the administration, in light of the governor's public declaration of support, will be willing to bring it up to what's going to be necessary to keep all 3 campuses up and running.
One of the things I would like to also bring out, and we had some discussion around it, and maybe we need to have more testimony, but last year when the chancellor recommended closure of 3 campuses, we had a very, I thought, informative session with the state economists talking about the value of the state colleges, and we tend to think of them in traditional higher education terms, but the role they play in terms of the dollars returned, it was like 3 to 1, but also how they attract youth from other states and how they're also part of the local economy in the same way we would consider a business. And one of the things that I think the state colleges need to do, because I've heard some of our colleagues say, we're not doing anything for workforce. Well, in fact, I think if we looked at what happened with the COVID money last fall, with was it 3 million that was allowed? And we had over 1,000 Vermonters go into those programs that were certificate or specific occupational related courses. And a lot of the work and a lot of the services are really within that workforce credentialing and experience arena. And so I think we've got to shed some of our ways that we kind of look at it, and I think we have a tendency to say economic development is what ACCD does, but that's a very narrow view of, and there are many other things that we would say are beyond one single agency of state government. So I would say that as we're looking at that question, we're not doing anything in the budget for workforce development. We've got to be very cognizant of where, in fact, we are providing resources, and it may be in somewhat different ways, but nevertheless, they are investments in Vermonters in skills and skill development. So, but we'll have more discussion on the state colleges. Obviously, in light of the chancellor's office is well equipped, we're already getting, and it was addressed to me and I don't know whether the rest got it, was from two individuals who are saying that they don't agree with Castleton being replaced by, is it Vermont State College at Castleton? That it would, their brand recognition is very important. And so, but some of that was done. Do you want to survive or not? Or maybe you keep your name and you're not financially viable. So there's a lot of discussion ahead of us relative to the state college system and the report, and ultimately how we're getting some response back. And I would like to point out Senator Baruth is a member of that select committee, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So we've got a good resource on the committee to make the connections between the work of the select committee, the consultant who worked to put together that report on behalf of the select committee. And so this is only the beginning. I guess I want to say it's Friday afternoon. It's 2 minutes after 2. And we've got a lot of work. So this is just the first run through, and we'll have a lot more testimony and discussions as we proceed. So we're not agreeing to anything at this point. I want to assure people it's just, this is the governor's proposal. So let's keep going, Adam. How many more pages do we have?
Quite a few. But I just wanted to say, I'm not aware of any comment the governor made where he took the legislature to task for funding less than he'd asked for the state colleges.
I believe it probably was referring to his proposal to fund the state colleges out of the education fund, and that was not accepted.
I will dig up the quote for you, Adam.
Okay, I'm happy to say it, but
so
this is a much longer discussion, as you're aware. You should also be aware that the request this year is then followed with requests in the subsequent years. So this is not a one-year issue, and we'll have to be prepared for, if our intention is to meet their funding requests, this will be a 3- and 4-year issue before they get to balance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, and that's why I've asked everybody to at least look at the, and I know that Senator Ballin has referenced this as well. Even if you don't want to read the full report, the executive summary is very helpful in terms of the work of that select committee and the role that we want the state colleges to play in the state. So let's, so that could be some weekend reading for you, but let's keep going. We'll try to get through as much as we can.
Okay.
I don't know, committee, we will go no later than 3.
Okay.
So if we can't get through it all, Adam, by 3, we'll just schedule more time with you.
Okay. I have a 2:30.
Oh, well, then we will.
With your folks downstairs.
That's a real good excuse to get done at 2:30.
Who are my folks downstairs?
We're happy to come back on Monday or Tuesday, either, call us back. But
not Monday.
Working down through then.
Who are the folks downstairs, Adam?
The House Appropriations Committee, we're going over some coronavirus relief fund status and reconciliation.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I know that this committee will recognize the Working Lands Program. Secretary Tebbets would be very happy to come in and talk to you on that. I know that you're familiar with it, but governor's asking for another $3 million for Working Lands, which has been a program that, day in, day out has been very successful at getting money to small food businesses.
I'm still waiting, Bobby.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some small businesses never seem to make it in, but we're working on that.
Oh, good. All right. Let's keep going. This looks kind of line extension.
Right. I think the committee will recognize the first 2 entries there, the poll data harvesting and the line extension. Line extension is an existing program under CRF funding. And this is to provide, more funding and keep the program going. And then there's a little under $16 million for a broadband facilities deployment program, which is working with the CUDs. It's a way to provide support to CUDs predominantly to build out our broadband infrastructure. And the Commissioner of Public Service would be very happy to come in and talk to you about that.
Because this is general fund committee, this will give us a more flexibility in terms of how it is used.
Right.
The CRF came with so many restrictions that we couldn't didn't spend it in the way that we thought was preferable long-term, and it constrained how much we could spend out of that grant to begin with. So this is general fund, and I know that our colleagues across the hall are going to want to spend some time in terms of what should be the desired parameters around and uses of these monies, and standards for the contracts and the level of internet service. So that's going to be a continuation of that discussion. But because it's general fund, this is going to give the state, put the state in the position of its highest and best use and not be constrained by CRF. So I just want to make that statement that there's that the funding stream here, it should help. So let's go to human resources for
this is racial equity training, and these are people who will work within DHR and work on our statewide racial equity effort. And then there's
okay.
Sorry.
Well, is that to pay the trainers because, or is it anticipating that we have to pay staff overtime? This is to human resources, so I'm assuming it's actually the cost of delivering the training.
Yes, it's training and resources for getting out, statewide and providing training and support.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then there's $20 million to VHCB, which, as this committee is very well aware, knows a thing or two about providing affordable housing. And this is really part of the governor's effort to provide housing for workforce and for others who are looking for affordable options. So this will bring actually VHCB up to their full appropriation of when you add this to their base funding of 10.8 million, there'll be a total of over $30 million to VHCB.
Okay, we'll keep going.
And down below, you see the construct that would provide funding to the Downtown Transportation and Related Capital Improvement Fund. This is to focus on our downtowns, and it is a program that has historically been run through the Department of Housing and Community Development, and it's something that is looking at our downtown areas and predominantly focusing on providing ease of transportation within the villages, sidewalks, rights of way, that kind of thing. It's a program that's near and dear to the governor's heart. He may have been there at the creation when he was a senator, but it's a program that we think should be that we have the resources, provide additional funding for. There is typically base funding of about $500,000 that goes into this program on an annual basis. This would be on top of that.
5 million on top of 500,000. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So the total would be about 5.5 million. You'll note the note on this is though that we would need to alter the enabling language for the Downtown Transportation and Related Capital Improvements Fund. It does have enabling language that is more restrictive. I think it has to focus resources on designated downtown areas. And we're hoping to be a little bit more broad with the use of these funds. So there is some notwithstanding language that you'll see in there.
Okay.
Below, there's a $5 million T fund appropriation for EVs. And you also notice in section B1101 some one-time appropriations to various funds, 10 million to the Environmental Contingency Fund. The DEC oversees. This is the fund that is often called upon to clean up the mess, but also we're hoping to use them for expanded PCB testing in schools.
Adam, can I interrupt you for a second just to find out what page you're on? I feel like I'm taking the committee astray here.
Yeah, we're on village centers here.
So if you keep going down, keep right there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, folks.
You're welcome. So there's
Adam?
some contingency.
Adam?
Yes.
If I could just ask, in terms of
Yes.
the PCB testing in schools and cleanup emergencies, I had asked Senator Bray if the Natural Resources Committee could review our PCB standards because our state standards are so much lower than federal standards. Do you know if there's any, in the administration, is there any impetus to do that?
I don't know, but I'll follow up with you. That would be a Peter Walk question at DEC.
Okay. I'm glad to see this money. I'm just wondering if, at least in the Burlington situation, part of the problem is being caused by the delta between the federal standard and the state standard.
We had that with lead too, didn't we, Philip?
We did. And if, we review it and determine that things as are they should be, then this money is all we need. But it would be great to have this money and a review of those standards.
For sure.
Okay, I think we are going to have some further discussion because it's, the question really becomes one of some legislation that didn't pass last year. And that was really to do an assessment of the sort of the state of our public school buildings. And so we know that certainly we went out with lead. Now we're going out with the, with the PCB. We're going, and that is maybe we should be assessing, there must be a sort of a comprehensive review of buildings that would look at all risk health factors rather than sort of ad hoc one by one. But anyway, that raises the discussion around how we address the situation of our school buildings. Last year, we heard of one school, I think, where the storage was in the basement. And so there's a myriad of issues around our public school buildings that are out there to be addressed at some point.
The
So
House,
this is only one.
the House had last year a bill that died in their, I think it was in their Ways and Means, to do a comprehensive assessment to the tune of 1.5
Right.
million. And I believe they're going to come forward with that again.
That's my understanding. But if we're going to be doing an assessment, then do we, the question before us is what that assessment should include and how comprehensive, rather than sort of, the one by one sort of approach that right now we seem to be taking. So that's just more of an aside or information for the committee. And you're right, Philip. My understanding is that they want to take that bill that didn't pass last year and pass it over to us this coming year. So that the state of our public school buildings is something of concern, obviously. And then this is only to do the testing. So and cleanup, and it does provide money for cleanup then.
And the thing is, once you test for lead or test for PCBs, this 10 million will be a drop in the bucket. just looking at Burlington High, that's, we're already into that for 3.5 just to go to a new location
I
Not
know.
to remediate. So anyway,
Yeah, well,
glad to see it.
there's a lot more work ahead. Brownfields, once again,
So there's 11 million for brownfields revitalization fund. The committee will remember, I think I started today on a $14 appropriation to DEC for brownfields remediation. This is kind of the economic development component, another 11 million for revitalizing. Once they remediate the site, there's investment that's needed to turn these into commercial zones and the like. So this goes to ACCD to work and prepare formerly contaminated sites for reuse.
is this something new?
No, it's an
Have we been
existing fund.
funding projects? I know that we have obviously provided grants for the cleanup so that economic development can occur on those sites. But is this adding more money to an existing program?
It is. This fund has existed for a number of years. So it's a large amount. We typically haven't had this kind of money put in there, but no, this has been around for a while.
Okay. Do you have, obviously what we're dealing with is a combination of some of this is off the 210 million and some are a base. I guess, Stephanie, joint fiscal, we can create how you are proposing to spend the 210 million.
We have a spreadsheet, Madam Chair, that we can share with you that I believe we shared with the House Appropriations Committee that will have that write down, I think, to $211 million.
Okay, that would be very helpful to understand which pot of money we're talking about. Okay.
And then there's a $10 million investment to Clean Energy Development Fund. This is intended to set up essentially affordable community solar. Members may be familiar, pardon me, with community solar projects. I know there's one in my community where people essentially purchase or rent a solar panel or two as part of a much larger array and reap the benefits from the panels that they own or rent. I think one of the challenges there is to make this construct accessible to people of low and moderate incomes who may well have an interest but don't have the financial horsepower. So this is to provide subsidies for people of low and moderate income to engage in or to be involved with community solar.
Is this all right? Well, we'll have to get more information on that. I don't know. Is this an ongoing benefit or sort of a one-time join fee, but membership fee? So, did I hear Senator Westman?
Yes, we did take testimony on this today in Natural Resources, and we will go further. I might say that it is a proposal where people could buy panels within a community solar project, and I would say that a lot of renters may pay their own electric bill and may be customers of a company, but they have no ability in the rental space that they're in to participate in this. And 30% of the Vermonters don't own their own home. So this would also allow people in the rental community to be able to buy panels in a community project.
Well, we'll have more discussion in terms of what the qualifications are, et cetera. So I'm glad to know that testimony is being taken and we've got that connection.
Yeah, Natural Resources has already taken testimony and is, we haven't made any decisions, but we started.
Yeah, okay, good to hear that. This is the money for the IT
Yes.
capitalizes fund.
The $53 million or just under would capitalize the tech modernization special fund. I know that you will receive an awful lot of testimony on this. It's roughly 1/4 of the available investment money that we have. It's something that obviously we think is very important, and we're very happy to come in and talk to you about it. I know that Secretary Quinn has been engaged in active dialogue in the House, and I'm sure that he will be doing the same in the Senate.
Mhm. Well, it's like everything. All of it has merit, and it all has to be weighed against each other. And we will have to do just that.
Insurance. Yep.
In the following sections, B1102 is our construct, for carrying forward money from FY21 into 22 and put to work. The C that's paired with C102, which sets up a temporary reserve for the $213 million that is then carried forward and ended when the money in fiscal 22. So B1102 and C102 are the carry forward and the temporary reserve that will be carried forward.
All right. And we'll have further discussion, because out of some of your one-time lists, suggestions have been made that we might want to move some of this work ahead and actually include some of it in our mini bill that we're talking about. So if we want to do something on housing, and we want to take advantage of the lead time rather than wait until July 1st, we may want to start looking at how do we get some of this work, if there's agreement, that's how we want to spend some of this one-time money out toward projects and out into the economy sooner than July 1st.
Right.
Yeah, we could gain 2 months. We could gain May and June.
When we're getting into things like weatherization, or I don't know, even if we want to do something on the parks or outdoor recreation, that kind of thing, we might, those could lend themselves to taking advantage of the spring season so that we can start some of that work underway. But that's just something that we're going to be considering in the next, in the next couple weeks. So I'm just looking at the clock. We're at 2:23. Adam, do you have some sense it's where it's a logical place for you to end?
I have one more thing to say, and I was actually going to hand over to my colleague Hardy Merrill at D100. We can come back on Tuesday and do that, or he can sally on. But I think C103, maybe it's a good spot to end. This is enabling us to take the enhanced FMAP money for 2 additional quarters, a little over $40 million, drop it to the bottom line of the general fund in FY21, and carry it forward into FY22. So this money is part of the $213 million that you see us carrying forward into FY22. But this is 2 quarters of enhanced FMAP.
Yeah, okay.
And this is just the way for us to drop that to the bottom line. So.
Okay.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Bill.
before Adam leaves, I think he owes me a beer. And I say that because here's the quote about the state colleges. Since coming to office, I've repeatedly proposed increased funding for the Vermont state colleges. Sometimes these requests were met, and other times we settled for less. But you, the legislature, have shown a renewed interest, and I'm a willing partner. That seemed to me to put the issue on its head. But with that said, I'll say no more about it.
I think that probably is wise of you, Senator Brewer. And thank you for your research.
Sure.
So I'm just suggesting then this would be a good place to end today, D100. And this will allow Adam to go to the other committee, which obviously has, we will give deference to their work on a Friday afternoon. And I'd be willing to sacrifice finishing up a bit earlier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will schedule with Chrissy to come back and enlighten you on the D&E section at your convenience.
Okay, all right, that's great. So Chrissy, I'm going to adjourn the meeting if you want to